then we started focusing on building that power team. Right. And that's where the business coach and I started bringing in, the videographer, and started bringing in some other folks and talking to them through as we were going through that COVID year and 2021 and all that. And as a result, the revenue that I got from BNI in 2021 was $77,000. So that's a big jump. And that's all I attribute it to the referrals that I started getting from those who were in adjacent industries. And that continued through 2022 as well. Stayed steady. And then I became president of that chapter. And I was just in front of people more often. I was running the meetings. Visitors were coming in. I got a lot of referrals from visitors who came in. I started getting more referrals from our internal group. And then that revenue jumped to over $200,000.
Wow. All through BNI,
all through BNI.
Directly.
That's not, yeah. All that's revenue that I can attribute to BNI.
Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Oh, my web designer friend, you have tuned in to a very important conversation, and one that I'm so excited to dive into here, because we're going to dive into networking, in-person networking and referral groups, and dive into how you can join one of these groups and go to events, how to practically do it to get clients, to get web design clients, whether you're new and you just want to start getting clients, whether you want to get more web design clients, or perhaps most importantly, whether you want to start getting better web design clients. One of the best ways to get clients in any of those categories is by networking. Referral groups, anything you can do in person. There is a difference between referral and networking groups that we're going to cover here in this episode. But I'm a huge proponent of this. I grew over 50% of the revenue in my business came from my referral group. And the same has been true for so many web designers that I oversee, especially a lot of members of my community. And in this episode, I'm so excited to bring to you Mike Albuquerque, who is a member of my community. And last year, get this, within 1 year, has tracked in his business, because he is a multi-six-figure web design agency owner, he tracked that over $200,000, $208,000 to be exact, came from his networking group and referral group efforts. Now that's awesome. And that's big time. And he is several years into a network, like a networking group, and being in his referral group. But the cool thing about Mike is that in this episode, he is completely transparent and really opens up how he got started, because getting started and getting to this level, there's a journey there. But even as you'll find out, as somebody who is like terribly introverted, like Mike is, he actually learned to get out of his comfort zone, to get to a networking group, and actually really learn to love it. And as you'll find out, he's developed a very sustainable, solid foundation web design business with his primary client acquisition strategy to be networking, and more specifically, his referral group, which is a BNI group. So in this episode, we're covering exactly how he did it and how you can do it as well. It is still today the top recommendation that I have for all of my web design community members in my site and my community Web Designer Pro. I always recommend networking. It is still the quickest ROI. You will be shocked at how far and fast you can get web design clients when you commit yourself to networking. So in order to learn how to do that, how to feel comfortable, how to build more confidence, maybe you're doing some networking now and you want to be better at it, and you want to achieve some results like Mike has with over $200,000 just this past year alone from networking. And this year, he's actually on track to do way more. Here is my conversation with the man, the not a myth in Atlanta, because he's a networking machine now, Mike Albuquerque. Mike, what a pleasure to have you on the podcast, man. I usually see you inside Web Designer Pro, but how cool to see you here on the podcast, man. So welcome in officially.
Thank you very much. It's awesome. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to chat with you today. And, this is awesome. Thank you for the opportunity.
You are, by all intensive purposes, a Web Designer Pro. Like when I came up with the community name and really refined like my ICA, my ideal client avatar, you fit the bill, man. You've been doing 7 years, right? You've been doing your web
7 years.
7 years, you're up into multi six figures now. You have a healthy, stable business behind you with a really nice stream of clients, but you're not one of the hustle entrepreneurs who's killing yourself and working 90 hours a week, and you still have some time for passion projects. So for all those reasons, I'm so excited to dig in to what's worked for you, which primarily is networking. So I think that's what we're going to dive into. So I can't wait to dive into this, man. Let's talk about networking with where that is for you right now. How much business, whether you want to say numbers or percentage, solely up to you, man. How much of your business is attributed to networking, would you say?
So at this point, it is the majority of my revenue comes from revenue that I can attribute to networking. And surely enough, it's changed over time. I mean, it's grown, right? But I think right now there's, well into the six figures, where it's probably like 2/3 of my revenue, a little bit over 2/3 of my revenue is coming from, networking. Right. And that's, and it hasn't always been that way. Of course, it was a slow start, but or I shouldn't say slow, right? Because when I look back, I'm like, that's better than I probably could have expected for it to be. But yeah, I mean, I crossed last year, I, didn't just cross, I shattered going through six figures in revenue attributed to networking. And, I've been involved in networking now for local networking for, let's see, when did I start? I think it was 2019. So right around 5 years. I started after my third daughter was born. Right. And that's actually a reason why I put a delay on things, because I was looking into joining networking. Right. I'd been in business for a few years, and a lot of my clients at that point had been referrals from my past jobs, family, friends, people that I'd meet in my local community. But I didn't really have a pipeline to, have access to business owners, and, asking around and like Facebook groups and, some hearing from some other people, they said, look into networking. And I didn't even know what that was. For me, I came from the agency world. I came from working in corporate America. For me, networking was, going to either industry award shows or, the after hour things that you go with your colleagues. I never went to something like a chamber event or anything like that, where you're going there to kind of share your business and what you do. Right. It was always more or less to kind of see who else in the industry is working. And so, when I came to networking, when I started hearing back in 2019 of networking as a way to get clients and get partners, I thought, well, that's worth exploring. Right. That sounds interesting. And so I went through, I think I explored a few different options, right? The first thing I did is I went to like a chamber event in my local area, and I was trying to figure out, what is the chamber of commerce, right? I'm in the Atlanta area, in the metro Atlanta area. At the time, I was living in a city just a little bit north of Atlanta called Sandy Springs. And then I moved to Marietta, which is a city on the Northwest. And I was looking like, wait, what are the chamber? Do I go to the Atlanta chamber? Man, that's in town. That's a long ways away. Is there like a local one? And I found like the Cobb County one. And, I found all these different chambers that I could go and be a part of. And I went in the room, and it felt so foreign, going in and doing the elevator pitches and seeing who was in the room. It felt I was really intimidated by it, frankly. And I also looked across the room and just didn't get the sense that I could find a lot of clients there, right? Just because of the mix of the people who were there, they were mainly people in sales and all that. And I thought, well, that's okay. I don't think I'm going to get anything here. And I was getting a little discouraged. And I remember reaching out to someone or making a post on Facebook and just sharing that. And someone said, you need to check out one of these like hard networking groups where you have like one seat per position, right? There's not going to be like a dozen other digital agencies in there. And you're there not to meet people, but to make connections. Right. And so that's when it clicked. Right. And I joined one of those groups, and I went to visit, and I saw that it was very different from the open networking kind of environment. And the neat thing about the group that I joined was that they also provided a lot of education on networking, and that was very valuable. So they had like an online portal where you took courses, and some of that stuff, it's like you don't want to do it, but it ends up being a little bit helpful, right? Where you understand how to talk to people, how to explain what you do, how to break it down into pieces. And that was back in 2019. So that was my start with it.
And that was BNI. Was that BNI, the referral group you joined?
It was BNI. Yes. Yeah. So, and my strategy for BNI, they're all over the place, right? I mean, if you go in there and you put your address, you'll have like 15 pop up within like a mile. So I just look for the closest one. Like, which one is right here next to where I live, right? And I looked at a few. I looked at a few of them, and then I figured, no, this one seems to have the best mix.
I think what you hit on there, Mike, with your experience with getting into networking is what we all experience for anyone who has tried networking. And it's that there's just so many different forms of networking. And the biggest thing that I learned this years ago, but I didn't really have a title or a phrase for it. But what's become so clear to me more recently is that there is a stark difference between networking groups and referral groups. Mm-hmm. And the act of networking you could do, like you said, technically, if you go to a chamber of commerce, whether it's local or like a big city one, that's networking. If you go to a meetup, that's networking. You guys, you're a member of Web Designer Pro, you and some other pros are meeting up next week in Atlanta, having a pro meetup. Right. That's actually a form of networking, although it's not about clients per se, it's about like partnerships and relationship building with colleagues. If you go to networking events, obviously that's networking, but there is a referral group which you could network in, but that is where, like you said, for anyone who doesn't know, these are much more, I mean, it's in the name. It is a referral based group. Like, that's why you're there. You're not there to drink coffee and eat some donuts and shake some hands and get a business card. You're there to give referrals to people and get referrals from people. So I love that right away. We're hitting the difference there, because I didn't really understand that either when I got into the world, but my story is the same as you. Over 50% of my income came from my networking group. It wasn't necessarily the members in that group. Some were clients, but it was who they knew. Can you speak to that, Mike? Like, looking back, 5 years later or so, did that dynamic play out for you too, where that group kind of became your sales force and it was about who they knew? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. It was that. I think my story echoes yours a lot in that sense, because I joined the group, and it's interesting because when you do, they do tell you, don't expect drastic results for the first year, right? You kind of get started slowly. And, I ended our first year thinking, do I want to come back here or not? But that's where what you're mentioning about the referrals that are outside the group came in, because yes, I did have some people in the group who, hired me to create their website or do their branding, or, even for small tasks, people were reaching out to me, but that was not the kind of client I wanted. Right. But working with people who are in the group does help build that trust with them, right? Where they kind of understand your service a little bit more. And there's some validation that comes from working with other folks in the group. But what made me stay in the group is that someone in there, our painter actually had someone who did social media management for her come in and visit. And, I chatted with that person at the time. That was even one of the services I offered, right? My agency originally was full service marketing. Anything you need in the marketing realm, we're happy to help you with. Right. And so I'm talking to this social media manager thinking like, oh, I'm not going to get much from it. And she was focused solely on social media marketing. And she said, hey, I want to introduce you to my dad and his partner, local real estate agency. And I didn't think much of it. I thought she was just kind of being nice and saying that. But she made that introduction. I got them as clients. It was funny because they had actually just launched their website and they were really not happy with it. And then from that, for her dad and his partner became clients of mine, and the partner had another business. And they became a client of mine. And then there was an agency that did work for them. And then that agency didn't do the website of things. So then I got connected with the agency and got several other clients out of that. So I could see the vision of that growth, right? And that growth coming not from doing work directly for people in the group, but from that network that you're building outside of it. And that was really interesting because I didn't foresee that coming, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great reminder, as one of the top question I get is, how do I get clients? as you know, you've been through my business course. Like I recommend starting with who you know, branching out to your professional network, and then in-person networking. I mean, there's so many ways to get clients online. I know you and I are both in really big cities in the States. So we're not in rural areas or a place where our ideal clients are not near us. So we do have an advantage there. So there's a ton of options for online too. But by golly, for most people, if you're in the United States or Canada or the UK or Australia, there's going to be some sort of BNI chapter or networking events near you, or even if you have to drive 45 minutes or an hour once a week or once a month, it is so worth it because you can I feel like you get a lot further faster when you're in person, especially nowadays. Have you found that to be true with in-person stuff now versus even when you got started? Like, I feel like people are amped up to be in person again. I mean, I feel like we're like long past COVID and lockdowns and stuff, but there was definitely a shift through that time where I feel like nowadays, even concerts, comedy shows, everything is in-person stuff is just booming. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it's great that we have the tech, that we have the Zoom and everything else to be able to connect with people when we're not in person. But yes, it's a different feeling when you are in person. You get a chance to just flip that laptop around and show them your work and, just share a cup of coffee. And there's, I think, more freedom to have casual conversation, which always helps build that personal relationship, right? People do business with those who they know, like, and trust. And like is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the things that when it comes to networking or meeting people in person, just sharing a little bit more of your story, right? Sharing who you are, what you do. It doesn't mean that, you go in and you meet with people and you begin to trauma dump or anything like that on them, but just be open.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But if you're going to that's the cool thing about meeting with business owners locally. Like, I'm guessing a lot of your clients are Braves fans. So if there's probably a common interest there where if you talk with somebody in the UK or something, there may not be as much common interest. So that's another perk of doing things in person. If I show up with a Blue Jackets shirt in Columbus, which I have done in meetings, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know you were fans. You go to the game last week?" And I was like, "I did." The likability, you build likability. So all those things combined, I feel like there's it's an extra special time. And there's a bigger opportunity now to do things in person, especially in the wake of AI and so many people online. Like, you really, as a web designer or a service provider, you've got to differentiate yourself. And I think one of the best ways to do that and to stand out is to do things in person, because they're going to build that know, like, and trust very quickly when you're meeting in person.
It's different. It's different. Like, there's a lot of people who they want to, like, they like doing business with a small business because they can reach you, right? And I've had several clients who came to me from working in larger agencies, and where they're onboarded by the director or by the VP and whatnot, and then once they get started, they get handed off to the intern, right? And I think it's so they want to have that relationship where they can talk to you, and being able to meet with them in person, that just takes it to the next level. Right. Where it's like, here's a person who I know, hey, I can say, please meet me for a cup of coffee and walk me through, how do I log into the back end of my website? Right. I just did that with the client. I don't have a lot of clients who log into their websites or who want to, but this one wanted to. And he said, can we just meet over coffee? I'm like, sure. So we went on a coffee shop that was, 10 minutes from the studio, 10 minutes from my house. We met in there, we sat, we chatted, and in about 2.5 minutes, I showed him how to log into the back end of his website. And you
just increased your customer lifetime value by 3, 5, 10 years, maybe with one quick coffee shop meeting.
Absolutely. And, while we're there, we talk about, hey, remember I asked you for a review? Would you mind leaving a review in my Google profile? Or, hey, I got this networking opportunity coming up, where I think this would be useful for you. Do you want to come? Right. I invited him some things, invited me to other things. And it's part of building that stronger relationship and bond. So
BNI is an investment. A lot of people would be like, oh, this sounds great. Let me go to BNI. And then they're like, oh, isn't it like $1,000+ a year or something like that?
I think it's currently, I should know this because I was president of my chapter for a bit, but I think it's $799.
Okay. I was going to say, it might be different depending where you are located.
Yeah, I know the first year is more expensive. I think the first year is either 150 or $200 more expensive, and then from there on, it renews yearly lower.
Okay, so this is the US BNI. It may be different elsewhere, but it's $699 for a 1-year membership or $1,100 for a 2-year membership.
There you
and
go.
an application 3 of 300. I only bring this up. I really need to be an affiliate for BNI because like how many people have come into pro, and thanks to you for a lot of the threads that you've jumped in on, and you've like backed me up by saying like, I promise it'll pay off very soon. So many people are joining BNI, but I did want to mention that price point because it is an investment, but sell one website within a year at $1,500 and you've covered BNI for 2 years plus.
Yeah.
So my gosh, it's just, and already we're talking about the benefits of the group being referral based, and you're immediately exposed to everybody's personal and professional networks. This is how overnight you go from, I'm doing web design, I need to tell somebody about it, to there may be like 2 to 3 to 4 to 500 people now I'm exposed to just by being in this group of 15 or 20 people.
Absolutely. It is. I mean, it can be a big explosion, right? And just the access that you have locally, right? Your reach goes from being the reach of your network to the reach of, 20, 15, 20, 30 people, depending on the size of the group you're in. Right. And it's interesting because when it comes to networking, it's almost like it's not this idea of like, hey, I'm going to reach this person here, this person there, right? Which is what you're doing individually. But if you're going in and being part of these referral groups and not only that, but joining other networking events, just getting your name out there, getting that branding out there, you start building this web of relationships. Right. I had an event that I went to a few years back, and that was not a BNI event. That was part of another networking group that I'm part of, which is a local business association. And we had an after hours event at this restaurant. And so we had the outdoor patios packed, maybe like, 40 some people there or 50 people or whatnot. And there's this guy walks into me and he's like, well, I finally made it to you. And I'm like, excuse me, hello, who are you? His name was also Michael, right? And he's like, so I was in the other side of the room having a conversation. I mentioned something about websites, that I needed to get a website. And I started walking, and they said, well, you need to talk to Mike. He's over there. And on the way here, I talked to a couple other people. And so there's been 3 or 4 people who told me, you need to talk to Mike. Right. And those are folks from BNI. Those are folks from the East Cobb Business Association.
That's when you got to be repping your Web Designer Pro shirt.
Right.
That way you're easy to spot.
Yeah. And so it was one of those things where it's like, wow, look at the power of networking right there. Yeah. Right. This guy has received 4 different brand touches without even, talking to me or anything like that, just from the, what my clients and partners are telling him about me.
Yeah. What a killer way to get a hot lead. Yeah. Go to a packed patio where everyone knows you and can refer you, and someone has to literally make their way past a bunch of referrals to get to you.
Yeah. And it just goes to show, how much, like you said, how much it is worth to be a part of those groups. Right. I think there's a lot of excuses that people give themselves. And I did that too. Right. I did, in fairness, before I got started, I'm like, listen, I'm going to have a kid. I'm going to take paternity leave and I want to be home and all that. And so I'll start that afterwards. And then I started thinking like, wait a second, is this going to they ask a certain commitment. You can't miss too many meetings. Yeah. It's 7:30 in the morning. I'm not a morning person. Right. I mean, that's just being real, keeping it real. I'm there yawning every morning. Right. But then you start looking at the benefits from people who have been there. And there's first off, you get your day started early, right? You're going there, you're meeting people, just the impact that it can have in your business, in your revenue, in your mindset, also in education, and, getting people who, if you need to refer out, now you have a network of people who you trust, right? Who you're listening to them explain their successes and their victories and their process and all that. So there's a great value to that.
Is your BNI group weekly?
It is, yeah.
Okay. And there is something so valuable about having a weekly professional habit, like a networking group. I think back to mine, I'm like, gosh, that was no one told me how valuable that would be. And I don't think I realized it until after I eventually left it when I started teaching full time with this. But I was like, it was so beneficial to me. every Friday, most every Friday, 7:30 in the morning, same thing, which I had the exact same excuses that you did. And I delayed going into a group for over a year. So everyone should know, like, both of us we weren't like, oh, networking sounds cool, let's go. No, it was like, you had to drag us there.
Yeah.
It took me a year to be like, oh, every week, 7:30 in the morning. Same story. But I say that to say, as I look back on it, every week, 7:30 in the morning, eventually I was pumped up for Friday mornings because that was one of my favorite times of the week. And I would end the week hot, like kind of wish that was earlier in the week because I would generally get all these ideas and I would be, ready to rock and roll when I got home from that meeting on Fridays. But it's so beneficial to have a weekly habit like a networking group.
Absolutely. And they're not all early in the morning. Some of them are online. I know BNI does have some online groups. Our group did go online while COVID was going on, but we came back to in person fairly quickly in 2021, some point there. But we always had there was always a group of people who wanted to be in person, and so they met in a group, and then other people were online. And eventually, we went to where everyone was in person, and we had Zoom still up on the TV behind us for those couldn't be there. And then eventually, about a year ago, we finally ended that. But the energy when you have 30 people, 20 people, even like when I started my group, we were under 15. Right. We're now, we've gone we've always been around getting to 30 in the high 20s. But even at, the 14 or however many we had when I started there, just the energy in the room of being with like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn to grow their business or looking to learn about, each other's business and figure out ways that we can support. I mean, you become invested, people become invested in you, and that's pretty cool. It's just, entrepreneurship can be something that is very lonely, right? Especially for us, because we're, as web designers, we're working from home, we're in front of the computer. We might go to a coffee shop occasionally or whatnot, but it can be lonely. If you don't have a community behind you, it's tough. And that's where things like Pro and, these referral groups and everything else can come in to just, lay a break on our mental health there.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's a different type of community too, because like with Pro, we have our web design community where we are a trusted, safe place for each other, but we're also all web designers. It's different in a networking group, but that's like your business community or your professional community. I like literally my real estate agent, my insurance guy, my financial advisor, my auto mechanic, all through my networking group. And I so learned the value of being a connector. And when you connect people and you are connected with a lot of people, like you mentioned, that web analogy, I think it's a great analogy for that. It's almost like it's like a foundation for referrals that like you're always in for as long as you stay top of mind. You're in with these people. So whenever my realtor runs into somebody who talks about a website, she's like, oh, you got to talk to John. I still get leads, dude, from people I knew and I talked to from like 2013. I just a couple of weeks ago, I got a lead from somebody on Facebook and they were like, you still do websites? And I was like, I don't personally, but let me know what you need. And it's going over to Pro. So, like that's the really cool thing about that is it's almost like a different version of a community, like a professional community, a business community.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another thing I think is interesting that I learned through the referral group and that really impacted me was some groups call it power teams or contact spheres or alliances. And I know we talked about this.
Core groups.
Core groups. There we go. There's a lot of different names out there for it. And I know we've talked a little bit about this on the community and all that. But like to me, when I found out about this, it was kind of like an aha moment. Right, where it's this idea that, you create stronger relationships with the people who are serving the same clientele as you and who are in adjacent industries. So like in my group, when I started, we had in the business to business team, it was myself and a business coach. And that was it. We were the only two who were serving like the same clientele. The rest were, your real estate agents, your painter, handyman, et cetera. And when we started really diving into the idea of creating this network of individuals who can be working together, because the business coach and he'd bring me for a lot of clients, right? He's touching the clients when they're getting started with idea, conception, or, when they need some of those foundational elements like branding and websites and all that. And so we said, well, let's really build a team. What are the assets that we need here? Well, a lot of the websites, they need photos, right? So let's go and see if we can create a connection with the photographer. Let's go and see if we need to create a connection with the videographer so that you can have that about video, explain the business's story, or use something for a website hero image that is much more personal than, stock videography. And so we started creating this group of, our power team of individuals who were serving the same kind of clients. And that's when things like took off, because we've developed a pretty strong team. There's 8 of us now. And there's a lot of referrals going around because we're all working with the same clients.
Yeah. Heck yeah, dude. Referral partners, absolute hidden gem. Well, not so hidden, but it is like an untapped, untalked about gem for getting clients, is partnering up, like you said, with somebody who, whether it's an SEO person, social media, digital agency. My top one was a video guy. He did videos for clients, and guess what? Where do the videos go? On their website. Their website sucks. Enter Josh. Yes. Same thing for me. We would do a website. They'd say, do you know anyone who does video? I'm like, I do. And back and forth and back and forth. We had like a referral off every month or so, and it was awesome. What's great about that too, like the reality is, for folks who hate marketing or hate getting in front of the camera or doing social media or ads, or like, I don't like that type of marketing. This is the best way to get clients in a way that suits you, even for introverts. I don't know where you fall on that spectrum. You're doing a lot, so I would imagine you're more extroverted. But even for introverts, if you're in a core group of 15 people, you get really comfortable really quick. And you don't need to go to like huge groups, which you mentioned the size of your group. I actually think groups over 30 struggle to maintain a good feel. Like in person, I think anything under 30 is ideal. Same thing. My group is the exact same way. We fluctuated between 15 and 25 all the time. That was a really good size group for what we did. But then when you go to some of these networking events, like I remember I got invited to the Columbus City Chamber of Commerce, and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. I'll go. I was thinking it might be 100 or 200 people. No, it was like 2,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
In the convention center. Cause I was thinking it might be in a room in the convention center, not like one of the main halls. And I walk in there and there's lights and strobes. It was like, like the stage is going on. I was like, what? It's like 9 a.m. What is happening? And there's literally like 2,000 people there. So that's like, even for me as an extrovert, I was like, no, thank you. But 30-person networking group, count me in.
Yeah, exactly. There's something about that size, right? Where it's like you can be intimate enough, but you're also getting a good amount of referrals, because there are metrics on larger groups. In theory, you get larger referrals, but I think there's something to say about the quality of those referrals as well, right? So in a smaller group, you will get a better understanding of what people do, and you'll be able to better explain what you do. And so those referrals will be higher quality as well.
That's a great point. Yeah.
We track a lot, and this is, I know this because it's my job in the chapter, right? It's my job to share every week with people our numbers. And like our group is one that has, we have really high, a really high seat average compared to our local region. And which means, how much, in theory, what's the average amount of dollar that in referrals that someone who's in our chapter, a member, gets.
Okay.
Right. So it's a lot higher than your average in other local chapters. And I attribute that to the power team structure. I attribute that to the size of our chapter not being super big. There's another chapter by us that has 70 people. They just crossed over 70. And I've been there to visit, and it's a very different experience.
Yeah, that needs to be 2 groups in my mind.
Yeah, you're in like this giant cafeteria-like space. I think it's a church actually now that they're in, and it's even the way that tables are arranged and that you're sitting and all that, and turnover. It just it's a lot.
Yeah, that's a great point. Smaller groups, less turnover, more intimate relationships, better referrals. Quite frankly, quality over quantity, as simple as that sounds. You mentioned, it sounds like your group is filled with a lot of really good folks. Was that the first group you joined? Was that the one that was local to you? Because I know a lot of people go to a BNI group and they're like, not a good fit. And I felt that with a couple of groups that I went to. My main networking group that I was in, my referral group, was kind of like it's like the Big Lots version of BNI. It wasn't BNI. It was just, it's in Ohio and Indiana, but it's like BNI. But yeah, I went to some groups that were like, I would not come back here. But our group was freaking awesome. And we just happened to get like a collection of a half dozen really great people. And then it kind of stemmed from there. So yeah, to you, Mike, is your group the first one you went to? Did you happen to strike gold on that first time?
It was the first closed networking group that I went to, right? And at that point, I didn't really understand the difference between open and closed networking. I just knew that I went into this group and I kind of liked it, and I liked that I wasn't going to have competitors in there, because that was a big thing. There was any networking group that you go to, there's so many digital agencies in there, and I was just not into the whole like, let me compete with people who are in the same room as me. I'm more of a kumbaya, let's hold hands and all boats rise kind of guy. I don't want to be there trying to like edge out the person next to me. So that environment really was appealing to me. I had gone to other open networking groups, but when I went to this one, I was just kind of sold on the concept. And then I have joined other groups since, and I continue to visit them. And it's more of a supplement, if you will, because I think the idea of when you joined a closed networking group, it's not that, hey, referral networking done, check. I'm done with this part. I don't need to do anything else, right? It becomes a lot more powerful when you do go to the local meetups and you do go to to the open networking groups. So I go to the, business associations nearby. I join an open networking group that happens every Friday, but I go there, maybe like once a month or so. Just show up, say hi to people. Depending on the potential that the group has, I'll come in more often or less often, depending on how busy I am as well. The BNI is a thing that's always consistent, but there's a lot of other groups around. I went to one, interestingly enough, there was a client of mine that was a networking group just for people who work in the trades.
Ooh,
yeah. So, and I had a client of mine who went there, and she said, hey, hey, I'm part of this group now. She was a BNI member and she left and joined this group that was just for the trades, which is essentially that same idea of the power team, right? Except that they turned that into a separate group, and they're not having to pay the big BNI fees. But they joined that group, and I went to that group, and the group itself became a client of mine. And then I picked up another like 3 or 4 clients there for different websites projects. And it was just, all from, again, network. They allowed me to come in. I presented the website that I built for their group. Because they're not part of that like BNI community, they don't have the tools and resources that BNI has. So I built a directory site for them where they can each have their own page and all that. And then now I'm building their individual sites. And because I got a chance to present that, they trusted me. They knew I was already vetted by a member, by their chapter, and then by another member. And it's just like, it's that snowball effect, right? Where you just like the work that you do with referrals just compounds over time.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
2 quick points on that. You mentioned the fee again for BNI, but I think about sometimes $1,200 or $1,100 with an initiation 3 or 300 for 2 years. Try running ads on Facebook to get clients, and watch how expensive that will get for you. Or if you have to hire a video editor to create reels, and again, I'm not against online marketing channels, but I'm just saying for people who are like, oh my God, $1,000, that is nothing compared to online advertising and marketing. And like you just said, and as this conversation has evolved, you see how starting small with a core group, like you said, the word you said right there is so important. It compounds, and you build that relationship, and that web gets bigger and bigger. And the second part of what I wanted to mention here, which I think you're doing like the perfect example of, is you have your core networking group or referral group. That's your foundation, but you do have the opportunity to dip into other chambers, events, networking groups, like you just mentioned, kind of even when you want. That's what's cool about that, is you can turn other options off. It's just like any form of marketing. Maybe for somebody who's marketing online, maybe you have like Instagram as your main thing, but every once in a while you dip into LinkedIn or TikTok or whatever it is, or you might do a workshop or a webinar. It's the same thing in the physical world. Like you have your main group, and every once in a while, especially if you happen to be dry on projects, or if you're in a season where like maybe summertime's not the best for that, but you're gearing up for the fall. So maybe in August and September, I'm going to do much more networking, because fall is a big wave for web design typically. It's a beauty about that. So hats off to you, Mike, for for leading the charge on it. I think you're doing that wonderfully with balancing the one-off networking with a consistent referral group.
And the neat thing too is that by doing those efforts of putting yourself out there and meeting people, sometimes people leave these groups and they go, they didn't work for their business. They go to do something else. So they didn't have the time. They move to another part of the town or another city, whatever it is. Well, they still remember you, right? I've had one of my best clients right now is a client who left the group the BNI group that I was part of shortly after I joined. And, he, guess what? Like 6 months after he left, he calls me and he's like, I want to have a conversation. And we've been working together for, almost 5 years at this point. And he's, one client that turned into like his corporate client became a client and then a lot of their independent advisors. And so it's grown a lot, right? From that one connection of someone who was in the same group as I was for a few months overlap.
Yes, that's well said. You're not just confined to referrals from that group while it's active. When members leave, you're still their web designer. Gosh, so important. What tips would you give to people who are new to networking or referral groups? So we've seen this question a lot in pro. Folks are getting ready to go to their first networking group. Naturally, they're nervous. But as you mentioned, Jeremy, before we went live, he was a member of pro. I know he's on a break right now, but his famous story, which I think is still on the pro sales page, I think you may have helped too, finally convinced him to go to a networking group. He was super nervous. The first person he sees, it was her first time too, and she was super nervous. And then she ended up being a great client for him. And that's an important note to remember. You're not the only one who's new at this or nervous going to networking events. I'd venture to say a lot of people are probably, maybe they're hiding it, but a lot of people probably feel that way too. Anyway, what tips would you give to somebody who is like, I want to go when I'm nervous, or maybe they're planning to go soon?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you touched on the great point there. Yes, there's people who get nervous. I got nervous I was nervous for probably my first year there, if not more. Right. But understand that no one's there to judge you. You're not getting graded. It's not school. People are there because they're going to look at you and say, hey, I want this person to be part of my team. And from that sense, they want you to succeed, because you can't be part of their sales team if you're not in business anymore, right? Or not as actively. So they want you to succeed. So, you go into the spots and, if you're nervous, guess what? Other people in the room are too, and they'll be patient and help you through. And there's a lot of, in my experience, at least, there's a lot of active listening where people are giving you some of those social cues, shaking their head and all that, where you're speaking, kind of helping you feel a little bit more comfortable. So don't let that get in your head. Take a little script. If you're going to do your elevator pitch and you're not used to doing it, write it on your phone, type it out, bring a little piece of paper. That's totally fine. Or note cards or anything like that.
Do you guys do monthly presentations where a new member, or weekly presentations where a new member or a member would present on a topic, and then maybe, a few months from now they might present again? Do you do something like that? We
do 2 7-minute presentations per week. And usually most chapters do 1 10-minute, but we switched it to 7 to
tell me if you agree. Isn't that the best safe place for training how to speak in a group and be comfortable? Because heads up, everybody, as a web designer, sometimes you're going to be called to a business and you think it's a one-on-one meeting, and oh snap, I'm speaking in front of a board of 8 people. That the first couple times that happened to me, I was caught completely off guard. My networking group really, really helped me with that. I imagine you probably feel the same. It's a great professional building mechanism as a part of this.
It is. I mean, you're essentially, that's part of what you're getting there, right? You're developing that muscle memory of speaking in front of the group every so many weeks, depending on, you do the math based on how many members your chapter has, but also just the weekly presentations, which might range from 30 seconds to 60 seconds, getting a chance to stand up and speak. You start repeating that. And then you start paying attention to the people in the room, and you see the ones who do it really well, and the ones where, maybe people even finish phrases for them, or, people just react well to them, and you start making some mental notes. And if you are in a group that is something like a BNI, they provide education on what you should be including in that. So you're going to realize that, guess what? If let's say you offer, you offer an accessibility package as part of your, web care plan. You're going to go there and you're going to spend 60 seconds talking about the accessibility package, and no one's going to understand what you're talking about. And then you learn that you need to talk about it again, but in a different way. And then maybe you break down accessibility in 6 different ways. Just break it down 6 different parts of what you do, the impact that it has, who it can serve, tax advantages, and all that. And now you're hitting people over the next 6 weeks. You're training them, right? As you're piecemeal training that sales team to understand what you do. And that's part of that like education that, networking and consistency does. And also as you're doing that, you're becoming more and more comfortable in front of people, right? And then you go from accessibility to the next topic. And maybe you're talking about branding, logo design, and, Google Business Profile, or, websites or blogs, whatever it is, right? You break it into those topics, and that just becomes part of that strategy that you follow over time. And that's one of the great things that, networking really helped me. It helped me be more comfortable speaking in front of people. I was not super comfortable when I started. And at this point, I've done it for so long, and I've done it in other environments. I've done longer speaking engagements as well. But, being in that environment just helps you get trained for it, and just, helps you feel much more comfortable with public speaking.
On that note of public speaking, where do you fall, Mike, on the spectrum of introvert to extrovert?
That depends on who you ask, right? I think a lot of people get the impression that I'm more of an extrovert. I would be perfectly happy just living in my basement and not dealing with people. So I don't get my energy from being around people, which I think is one of the qualities of an introvert, right? But also when I'm speaking, be it speaking with you right now, or be it speaking in a networking event, there's also this idea of, hey, let me just take a deep breath and almost like, put myself in a spot where I think I want to be to do my best here and not get in over my head.
Are you saying that an hour with me is going to drain you, Mike? Is that what this has become on your calendar?
I'm going to need a nap after this, Josh. That's what I got booked.
No, it's a great point though, man. There is, we've had a couple of podcasts about this in the past about energy and how you have to be really self-aware of your energy. And honestly, when you're preparing for a networking group, if you know, I'm drained by meeting a bunch of people, don't schedule something right after your networking event or your referral group. Like, keep the rest of the day open. For me, I'm kind of opposite. Like, it actually fills me up. So I tend to, like, after this, I'll probably be like, all right, let's do something. So I think it is a great point for everyone to remember to be really self-aware about your energy, and whether you're extroverted or introverted, depending on where you are on that scale. And like you mentioned, that can kind of depend on what situation you're in. You may be really introverted in a big group, but you may be really extroverted in a small group, or you may be really introverted in a group that you don't know, but you may be really extroverted in a group that you do know really well.
And interestingly enough, that's another thing that, like, you might, when you're looking for a networking group, seeing the vibe that's in the room, like are you in a group that's more vocal, that's more friendly, open, that welcomes you, right? That is another important piece of deciding which group you're going to join. Right? Because there's going to be some groups where naturally, just because of the energy in the room, you're going to feel more comfortable. And there's others where you might feel more intimidated. Right? And it's going to be a variety of factors there, from size to energy to time of day and everything. So, it affects us all differently. Right? And so BNI has a policy that you can come in and visit twice before you have to decide if you want to join or not. And I think that's a reason. There's a reason why it's not once, right? Because maybe you're on an off day, or, maybe you had something happen, or, getting a chance to try it twice, see different people in the room, be in 2 different mental states is important. So, and
as you've probably seen over the years, sometimes you have meetings that are just awesome. Like, that was a killer meeting. And then sometimes it's like, it was kind of burnt. Like, we had a lower group, energy wasn't there, like you just mentioned. So you want to give people a couple tries to see what that group is going to be like, for sure.
Yeah. One thing also, Josh, that I don't think we've talked about, but that I think is kind of like the next level in terms of referral and networking is a lot of these groups offer an opportunity for you to volunteer as, either on a leadership role in a chapter or, doing certain admin tasks. And some of them are give you more exposure to visitors and members than others. Right. But I think that can be a great benefit to helping you build that trust from people and just help them getting involved in what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, what a good point. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I forgot in our group, maybe this is the same for BNI, I'm not sure, but we would have, I think 5 or 6 roles for regulars of the group. Like I was a president for 1 year. The next year I was the secretary. So I would like do certain admin tasks and stuff like that. It wasn't a lot week to week, but I think what you're hitting on, the true benefit to that is if a guest would come, let's say a construction company representative comes and they see that, Mike is the president of this chapter. Well, and he does web design. That tells me that he's committed to being here, to being professional, to leveling up, and to being a resource for these people. Like it, in a way that's a very untapped potential for a sales thing too, is you just showed that you're legitimate. And I'll tell you this, I don't know. Let me ask you a question live here, Mike. What do you think one of the number one fears of clients is for web designers?
Oh, that they're going to leave, disappear.
There it is.
Right.
You didn't even have to think about it. And I know this from talking to so many clients. I'm sure you do too. Clients are really worried and really hesitant towards creatives and web designers because a massive percentage of them bail. Nobody in Web Designer Pro, of course, but most web designers peace out at some point. If you are in a position like that, you immediately build that trust aspect of the know, like, and trust, because they're like, well, Mike's obviously here week to week. If he tries to bail on me, I know where he is. It really does. It adds a level of continuity and stability. So yet another little sales benefit of being in a referral group.
Yeah, I mean, I was president of my chapter in our presidency started in September 2022 to, it was 1 year, so to 2023. And I saw a big jump in revenue from that, just from being in front of the meeting every week. Because as president, all that you're doing, I mean, it's not that much work, is what I say.
I found that to be the easiest role out of the other ones that I was in. And it's the one that you get the most exposure, so I think there's a great benefit to being there. You're running the meeting, right? Which just means that you're there and you're talking for, an hour and a half every morning, which is fine, but you're also in front of the meeting. You're the one that everyone's looking up to. You gain a certain level of thrust and authority just by being there and doing that. There's been I'm happy to walk through a timeline of basically my involvement for those who have hung out till this point, right? A little nugget here of my experience with BNI. I'm happy to share that, Josh, if you're comfortable with that as well. Let's go. Heck yeah, dude.
All right. So I joined BNI in 2019, and that year I made $16,000 in revenue from BNI. And I ended that year thinking, oh boy, is the juice worth the squeeze? Right? That I reach my limit here? Is this going up? Is this going down? Do I renew for another year or not? And it wasn't so much a financial commitment. It was a time commitment, right? It was the being there every week. It was the being there every morning. And I said, okay, no, let me hang out here for a little bit more. Right. And so my next year was a little bit higher, at 26, for 2020. Now, then we started focusing on building that power team. Right. And that's where the business coach and I started bringing in, the videographer, and started bringing in some other folks and talking to them as we were going through that COVID year and 2021 and all that. And as a result, the revenue that I got from BNI in 2021 was $77,000. So that's a big jump. And that's all I attribute it to the referrals that I started getting from those who were in adjacent industries. And that continued through 2022 as well. Stayed steady. And then I became president of that chapter. And I was just in front of people more often. I was running the meetings. Visitors were coming in. I got a lot of referrals from visitors who came in. I started getting more referrals from our internal group. And then that revenue jumped to over $200,000.
Wow. All through BNI, like
all through
fairly
BNI.
directly.
That's not, yeah. All that's revenue that I can attribute to BNI referrals, be it members or what we call the tier 2, which are that's what you want, right? The people who are being referred by members, or the tier 3, which is anyone who's being referred by a referral.
Heck yeah, dude. Is that a mix of new projects and clients and recurring for those who are in the groups and stuff like that?
It was. So a big part of recurring started in 2020. That became my focus. I said, the only way that I think I can make this thing work is if I focus more on recurring revenue. And I went through an exercise as well where I started productizing my offerings, just making things a lot simpler because of BNI, right? Because I was seeing that the businesses that were there, I was not having the Fortune 500 clients in the room, right? It was more the small businesses, the solopreneurs, the SMBs, and so I figured, how can I make it easy for them to where it's a no-brainer to work with me, right? And part of that has to do with pricing, part of that has to do with structure, and offering just a good bang for the buck. Doesn't mean going super cheap with the services, but it means just demonstrating the quality and the success and making it so that they want to work with you.
So over 200,000 in 2023. Is that right?
That's right? Yeah.
I have to ask you, we're halfway through 2024 at the time of recording this. Do you have any projection for 2024?
So I have not been as good as tracking my revenue this year. Unfortunately, I'll
follow up with you in pro here. I'm about to do after June. I'm going to do a mid-year DM to everybody to see how the year is going. So maybe I'll give you a couple weeks here to do that.
Yeah, maybe I can do an update.
Dude, that would be
to share, because the way, I think. Listen, there's a couple big projects that came through that helped that number go up higher. But even without those projects, I would still be, even without the big projects, I'd still be well over 6 figures in BNI revenue.
Key.
Right?
Gosh, man, that's so awesome. This has been a master class in referral groups. I kind of feel like BNI should sponsor this, or
right. Let's talk to
talking
them
about this. I'll get on it. I'll hit you up. I'll see what we can work out. But yeah, Mike, this has been killer, man. I mean, such a great example of how to do this right that suits your personality. Are you doing other forms of marketing along with this, or is this your bread and butter?
This is my bread and butter. I don't really do anything else. I do the local networking. I mean, at this point, referrals have kind of become an ongoing thing, right? Where they just come in, right? Be it client referrals, client direct referrals, or be it referrals through BNI members. It's nice because as you develop those relationships, you start working a lot with people in the chapter on projects. So I have a lot of projects that I work on where, I'll work with the business coaches in my chapter. I'll work with the videographer, the promotional products person. And so we all, instead of, I mentioned at the beginning of the call that when I joined BNI, I was full service agency offering any marketing services that were necessary. And as the years went by, I discovered that it was a lot more powerful just to really focus in and zero in and say, no, I'm not going to offer social media management. No, I'm not going to offer, photography or videography or Google ads or anything like that. I'm going to focus on websites and branding, right? That's the bread and butter. That's what I'm going to do. And then that means that now there's all these different projects that, I can work with the social media manager who is in my chapter, right? Because we're not competing anymore. Other people in the chapter just feel comfortable bringing me in for, and that's been really powerful as well.
Yeah, it's awesome to see how you've refined your services. I'm sure years of having a little 30-second elevator pitch or 60-second elevator pitch has helped you be able to refine what you do as quickly as possible, especially when you talk about it. So what's cool to wrap this up here, man, I know you've really built up a large network locally. And you're doing kind of some passion projects with this. Do you want to tell us about kind of what you're up to? This may be applicable for folks in the Atlanta area. But yeah, how has this led to some of your passion projects that you're up to?
Absolutely. So one of the things and thank you for asking that. One of the things that came out of being part of BNI and working on some of those projects is that, every now and then an opportunity comes around to put a business together. Right. So, the business coaches in my chapter and I, in 2022, we filed for a federal grant that was given to counties all over the country, and to create a program that supported small and minority-owned businesses specifically in Cobb County, Georgia, where we are. Right. So this is federal money. It was given to counties all over the country. Cobb County decided that they were going to open it up for businesses to, create ideas for programs for several different things. And part of it was workforce development, right? Supporting entrepreneurs. So we decided to create a proposal for a program that would help these small and minority-owned businesses through a variety of things. So we offer what we call a free scholarship, right, which allows membership to our online community, which, yes, is hosted by Circle, where we have online courses that for sales, marketing, operations, in the areas of legal, finance, HR, and entrepreneurial mindset, right? So we're trying to give that whole support for the entrepreneur, right? What is some of that? And we actually have a networking course that's going to be launching soon as well.
Oh, nice.
We do, and then we just launched this March, right? And so, we got the community and we got the courses going. We're going to continue to launch more courses as we go. We have a lot of different experts creating their own courses. I just created one that went live just a couple of weeks ago about finding your audience. But we're also offering, live workshops where members get a chance to go through, things that they have questions on when it comes to the courses and the workshops. We have peer-to-peer roundtables, which is what we call our mastermind type groups, where you got a chance of being with other entrepreneurs in a safe space and just sharing some of your challenges. And then we also have done with you services, which are, consulting services to help these entrepreneurs with some of the challenges that they might have, where they just need a consultant or a mentor to come in and walk them through one of these challenges and help them solve it. Right. So we're trying to offer that full support and build a community, a strong community of entrepreneurship here in Cobb County, Georgia. And this is one of the things that came out of networking, and it's so excited to be a part of it.
I love it, man. I saw like the elevated version of Mike just come into light there, man. Like, I can tell how fired up you are about this. I imagine this contributes to your business too. If you are a leader in something like this, that's either a nonprofit or a business, leadership group, especially for something like this, that's such a worthwhile cause, man, I imagine that's for a long time is going to continue to elevate. Not that you're doing it for this reason, but it just shows that another sign that like you are reputable, dependable, and you have passion and a heart for business too. Like, you're just going to attract more and more awesome clients over the years ago. I imagine like you're gonna have to scale like crazy here pretty soon to keep up with all this.
So the fun thing about this is it has been a fun challenge because, this is the members that we have as part of the program, they might or they might not be the type of members that would typically become clients of mine. Right. So I get a chance to share with them some of my knowledge and expertise. And my involvement with the program is very much from that coach perspective, right? Where I'm doing, I'm giving them the tools for them to essentially kind of understand a little bit of marketing. This is not it's not hey, you're going to become an expert in how to build a website. We don't even have a course on building sites or anything like that. It's more an understanding what marketing is, why it's important to, create those personas for your business, why it's important to, create a strategy, define which channels you're going to be marketing in, how branding works. Like, from the marketing perspective, those are some of the things that we're communicating. And so I will do things like, website reviews and branding reviews and live with them on our community as well. But it is so fun to be able to, sit back from that perspective and share some knowledge and just help them grow and move forward. And because that's always been something that I've told people I'm so comfortable way before this. If you just want to sit down with me and just pick my brain over coffee, I'm fine with that. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to share knowledge. I'm happy to just sit down and meet people and make conversations. And event, because I had a lot of people who did that for me. When I was starting my business, I had people who took time to walk me through certain things that I should have done. I had folks who helped me understand when I moved from Brazil to the US. I had folks who helped me understand, local culture and how to navigate it and all that. So I want to be able to do that as well for other folks. And that's where the Cobb County Business Bootcamp comes in, because now we have an avenue to do that.
So killer. I had no idea you were such a webpreneur, man. This is awesome. The onion is peeling back on all the different layers of what you're up to, man. Where can people go to check that out if they're interested, especially for those local in Atlanta?
Yes. Look me up on LinkedIn.
And we'll have all this linked in the show notes, of course.
Okay. And then our website is theccbb.com. That's where you can learn more about the Cobb County Business Bootcamp. That's theccbb.com. And you can access you can apply there. Our application process is super simple. I know, because I built it, right? So
nice. Oh, and by the way, you're a web designer too. So where's your website? You're just rebranded, right?
That's right. So my website is beardouble.com. That's BEAR, bear like the animal, double like twice. There's a fun story of why I picked such a weird name. I'm in the process of creating a video to explain that. But I wanted something that was really unique, and it came from my kids. We'd play superheroes during COVID when I was home with them, and I had this mask that I'd pull over. It was a beanie. It was a Daredevil beanie, because they had their costumes, and I just had this beanie, right? So we'd wrestle around the couch, and I had this beanie, and I'd pull it down over my face and say, "I'm Daredevil." And one day my oldest comes to me and she's like, Daddy, let's go play. I'm like, okay, what do you want to go play? She's like, let's go play Bear Double. And I go, Bear Double? She's like, yeah, when you pull the mask and you say, I'm Bear Double. I'm like, oh, so it became a family joke. And when, I went to rebrand, I decided, you know what? I want something that is truly unique and that's rooted on the reason why I do what I do, which is my family.
That's right? Awesome, man.
And the kids light up whenever they hear the name, whenever they see the bear, right?
Oh, it's so great, man. I love the rebrand. And you have as of now, don't settle for the bare minimum, Bear Double. You got a lot of cool, dad puns and stuff in there. So I'm actually currently working on the new version of the Web Designer Pro landing page. You have a couple of things you've done on your site. We're both Divi guys. So I'm totally going to rip it off.
Absolutely. I'm
totally going to rip a couple things off this site.
That's what I love about the Divi community. We're all helping each other out. We're all building on what we saw. You see cool things and you're like, how can I take this and use it for, to work here and there. And that's what it's all about,
Yeah, man. I know. We've talked before we hit record, like there's a lot of hate for Divi right now in the wake of other page builders and a dragged on release for 5.0. But I'm very excited about it. And you're right. I think one of the main things I love about Divi is the community. There's still there's just folks like you and myself and others and there's great communities for all builders, but there's something still really special about the Divi community. So I love hearing that you're sticking with it and you're still really enjoying.
Absolutely. Listen, I was, you were one of the first Divi guys who I saw, and I was following your tutorials and, how to add CSS and all that. And like still to this day, whenever someone asks me for what tool do you recommend? Cause I tried Wix and, or I tried this or that. And of course they all have their own, challenges. I don't want to hate on any particular tool, but I've had a lot of people who they reach out to me and say, I want to build my own site. But, I can't afford to hire you. I want to build my own site. But I tried this one builder and it's not as quick as they make it look in their, 15-second YouTube ad. And I told them, look up Divi because you can go to YouTube and type Divi and whatever question you have and everything comes up. And then I usually I refer them to check you out, right? I'm like, just Google Divi, blank statement, Josh Hall, and you'll get something.
Oh, man, what an honor, dude. That's awesome. I mean, it's funny because like those tutorials are largely pretty old. I don't do many Divi tutorials nowadays. But yeah, it's so cool that they're continuing to help a lot of people. Yeah. So thank you for continuing to refer those out, man.
Absolutely.
It's just like, it's like the online version of what we talked about. in what we're doing in networking. Like literally what you just talked about in person with networking groups is what you're doing online.
Exactly.
We're both doing together. So Mike, this has been awesome, dude. I really, this has been so cool to see everything that you're up to. I had no idea about what you were up to behind the scenes with some of this stuff. You are a true web designer pro. I want to say publicly, it's an honor to have you in pro. You are, you're busy, you're doing a lot of things, but you pop in quite a bit. And anytime you do comment on something, I'm always keeping an eye out because I know it's going to be thoughtful and good, like really good, advice based off of what's working for you. So thanks so much, man, for being in my world and being a huge part of pro. And I'm thrilled about what the next few years are going to look like for you. And I think you're just going to continue to kill it and have more time for the three littles, man. So
yeah, no, awesome. Thank you for having me. I love the community, and for anyone who's on the fence, you got to check it out. I mean, there's just so much great content. I love the weekly trainings to be in. That's, I make sure I make a point to be there, to go back and listen to the replays and anything like that, because I find so much value on just hearing the struggles that other people are having and them coming to you and you helping them walk through that process and come up with solutions, right? Be it a website review or be it just helping them think through the business model, how to organize things, and then seeing that evolution week after week. I think to me, that's one of the most helpful parts, right? And it's doing that. And then also just the fact that you have this community of, what are we at now at Pro? Like a little over 200?
220.
220. Yeah.
223 today.
Goodness. So the neat thing in what I do a lot is you hear someone talking about a topic that you're struggling with or that you're interested in. Guess what? You contact them directly in the community, right? And everyone who I've contacted has always answered back and has always been so gracious. You've really fostered a really engaging and positive community, which I love. So thank you.
Well, your vibe attracts your tribe, man. You are like the ideal fit, man. And it's just been awesome seeing what you're up to. And yeah, we have something special going. So I really appreciate you being a part of it. Mike, till next time, man. I think we can probably have a few other conversations come out of this one, but really appreciate hearing your thoughts on networking referrals. So Paul, already pumped for another one for round 2 someday, man.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Josh. Appreciate you having me.
So awesome, right, guys? Like, to be able to grow your business without killing yourself over marketing efforts, it's truly one of the wins of networking. So I hope this conversation with Mike on exactly how he built his he built his business via networking helps give you some confidence to do the same. It's such a mirrored and paralleled story to mine that I just could not agree more with what Mike had to say in this one about why you should consider networking, how to get started. And yes, the investment, it is an investment to join a referral group, but do you want to put that in ads? Do you want to put it in reels and hiring somebody when you could go to a networking group and immediately be in front of hundreds of people? Sounds like a no-brainer to me. It was a no-brainer when I built my business for over a decade through networking, so I encourage it. Now, if you would like to connect with me and Mike and you want to share some results that you get from your networking efforts as you come back to this, head over to the show notes for this episode, which will be found at joshhall.co/338. Make sure you check out Mike's site as well at joshhall.co/338. We'll have a link there to his site, which is beardouble.com. He's got a really cool Divi site in the works. Well, it's actually live now. So check that out. And as we talked about, this is just one member of 200 plus of amazing web designer pros in my community called Web Designer Pro. If you want to surround yourself with people like Mike and get the support and encouragement and even just additional inspiration from people who are doing it and building 6 and multi-6-figure businesses, come on into Web Designer Pro. Join us. You can go to joshhall.co/pro to join us. Mike is more of a top tier member with a multi-6-figure web design business. But as you've seen here, he's so open and so willing to share what has worked for him. It's one of the main reasons I just absolutely love our little corner of the internet in Web Designer Pro. So if you're wanting to get similar results and you want to see what's working, you want proven paths, head on over to Web Designer Pro. Come join us, joshhall.co/pro. And for the show notes for this episode, all the links we mentioned, a full transcription, and to connect with Mike, go over to joshhall.co/338. Until next time, friends, go over right now and join a networking group or join BNI referral group. Get on it and get some leads and get some web design clients. Cheers.